morning. There was one. Good morning, everybody. I hope you guys had a great time last night, wherever you ended up. Hopefully we have a great day planned for you. We're going to have a nice dinner outside, weather permitting. And once again, without further ado, Mr. Nick Jones.
Morning, everybody. We do have a lot of things in store for you today that we're excited about. As we said yesterday, we're just glad that you're here. We're thankful for what you mean to us as our partners and what you mean ultimately to the people around you, the people in your community, the people that you're making a difference in their lives every day, whether they even really realize how much that you do for them. We see that, and we're appreciative of that. So hopefully everything that we've done for you this week has been encouraging and has been informational and helped you learn, and you're going to be able to take some things home with you to help you out and the different things that you're doing. So as we get started today, we want to continue to give a shout out to our sponsors and our vendors who have been a huge part of making this possible. So I'm going to ask Elliot and Bailey to come up and share with us this morning our vendor spotlight.
The authenticity and uniqueness of your company is what we want to share with the world. Your brand is the face of your company, and it is what defines you. Whether you're a cooperative or a municipality in the broadband space, our goal is to make your customer notice you. How do we do that? We put our creative minds and tools to work for you by studying your audience and learning what it takes to help you close the divide. We are thankful for Active and their assistance this week by providing our informational signage.
All right, Hands-On or Hanson Original is a trusted provider of screen printing, embroidery, and apparel needs. They specialize in meeting the needs of nonprofit organizations. They also are a proud supplier of Logicom apparel. We want to thank them for providing the Connect T-shirts, the visors, and the table and the visors that are on the table. Call Susan and mention Logicom USA to get 10% off shipping of your first order.
You're great at what you do. Add us to your team to let the world know. Bramblett Group provides comprehensive marketing, advertising, and public relations services, so you can focus on the work you love. Bottom line, we help you with words, images, and ideas. We are thankful for Bramblett Group providing our on-screen graphics and also our recording sessions this week and getting plenty of pictures for us. Thank you.
I want to say a special thanks to these three vendors because, as you guys know, it took a lot to kind of get this figured out in the short time that we did. And these three vendors actually took a lot off of my plate and handled a lot of different areas for us to make this possible, and so I'm very thankful to them. And so the visors on your table there, make sure that you take one of those home with you and enjoy your t-shirt, and thankful for Activate and Bramblett Group and all that they've done this week to help us make this possible. So as all of our vendors, special thanks from me for the work that they took off of my plate to get this done this week. So big thank you to them. Our next session is our part 2 of what's going on at Logicom. So at this time, I'll bring a couple other guys up, and we're going to move into that portion of our morning together. So if Dre and you and Dustin want to come up. So we think about what's going on with Logicom. As we mentioned yesterday, there's a lot of new things that we're doing. There's a lot of new areas that we are going into when it comes to broadband and working with utilities as far as project management, network services, all those types of things. But there's a lot of things that you know us for already, and hopefully you know us well for that, and we do a excuse me, a good job for you when it comes to voice, tech support, and just kind of our history in those areas in the cooperative and municipality space. So what we want to do in this section this morning is talk to you a little bit about some of what we've done in the last year and kind of where we're going and what we're striving to do. As always, we're always trying to be better. We're not perfect, never will be, but we want to get better at what we're doing. We want to make things easier for you. We want to save you time. We want to save you money. We want to make the experience better for you, for your employees, as well as the end user, so that your project continue to be successful and grow. So this morning, we have Andre and Dustin with us. Andre Gomez is our CTO. He has been in the industry over 20 years, in the telecommunications industries. He's worked for companies such as AT&T, Broadview Networks, Windstream, different management roles. He's been at Logicom for the last 16 years and our CTO for the last 6 years. So we're thankful. Dre is with us this morning. Dustin Thomas is our Director of DevOps. He's over 10 years experience in the software development field. Dustin has completed his Master's of Science in Information Systems Management. He's been with Logicom USA for approximately 1 year, 1 month, 6 days, 1 hour, and 15 or 17 minutes? 17 minutes, okay. So just very specific. But I really appreciate both of these guys. They do a lot behind the scenes that sometimes they don't get a lot of credit for. They work really, really hard just to make things go at Logicom. Sometimes I know I get on their nerves, especially Dustin. He'll put something out, and as soon as I'm like, hey, can you do this too? What about this? What if it did this? What if it does this? And you know, I know that it drives him crazy going back to kind of try to figure all that stuff out. So over the past year, a lot of you know that we've released a lot of new apps, a lot of new things to make things better. So as we begin this morning, Dre, talk to us a little bit about DevOps and development as far as Logicom USA. What's it about? What's the mission?
So when we first started working with the utilities, as the CEOs mentioned, they were new to the business. They didn't know what it was going to take to run a ISP, a phone company, and there was a big gap between the vendors they were used to using, like from a billing perspective, among other things, that those vendors were new to the industry as well. So there was a lot of gaps to cover. And so we started our DevOps team, which its mission for the past 5 years has been to breach that gap. It's working with your partners like SCDC, GLDS, or to figure out a way to make your systems work that you're comfortable with and do at the same time what you need to be doing now. We believe in the story about the cooperative helping the members, and that's how we see our relationship. It's helping you guys help the members, help the families that need our help, that collectively we can change their life for the better. So that's been our mission. It's to help you guys develop things in the background to automate things. When a lot of you guys get started, you can't go out and hire 10 different folks to do things that you're gonna need to do because you're not there yet. But you gotta start having to do those things. And we know there's tremendous costs and labor associated with that. So, we started automating a lot of things. So that way you didn't have to go and hire those 10 people off the bat. That you can wait till you're halfway through your project or later on when you have 1,000 or 2,000 customers where there's revenue coming in, and now it's a different conversation than day one, you're already, with a lot of loans and money put out, and you're trying to get going. And as well as bring our expertise. We've been in this business for a very long time, and we know what needs to be done and what it takes to be successful. So that was our first step to help the utilities be successful, is bridge the gaps with the partners that you trust that been there with you, and we all collectively work together to make you successful.
Dustin, when you think about some of these things that Dre's talking about here and the automation and building that, can you elaborate a little bit on some of what has happened during this last year?
Yes, over the last year, we've basically solidified our automation for both updates and provisions, and we have added some extra security for security, as well as helped with being able to go through and increase velocity through a bunch of different processes that both the co-ops and internal and external customers.
What kind of impact have you guys seen as far as maybe time or cost savings, et cetera, with the cooperatives and some of these automations that have taken place?
As we were getting ready for the show, we started running some metrics. We know we saved a lot of labor, time, cost to the utilities, but I didn't have a real true idea of what that number was. A few weeks ago, as Bailey and I were traveling to South Carolina to see one of our utilities to help them out with some things that they were doing, Nick, Dustin, and I started talking about it. We started running numbers of what it took 5 years ago for the utilities to do certain things, like send us a list of users that they have that we used to have to import, massage, and populate to be able to support those members. And when things didn't go right, what it took to consolidate those lists to make sure that we were always looking at real-time information as close as possible to it. And then we started looking at how long it took to do an install. When a field tech or installer got to a business in a home and they were installing voice, from the minute that they call in to the minute that they can walk offside, meaning the ONT is provisioned, we provision the switch, we update 911, we port their phone numbers, we go through the testing. It used to take about 20 to 30 minutes per install. And the reason why it took so long is because we were more focused on helping the utilities bridge those gaps. So our development team was focusing on what you guys needed to run your business. We weren't concerned about how long it took us or everybody, because we were all learning. We were all trying to work with each other. When we started running numbers, and just for this year, for the first 4 months of this year, we believe we saved a collective over 8,000 hours of labor to the utilities. I couldn't believe it. We ran the numbers 3 times. And that's what it showed. And I was like, wow. And this is only 4 months. And I was like, it just put things in perspective of the impact together that we're making. Because I can't imagine the utilities having to hire that many people to be able to sustain their rate of installs every day and keep their members happy, and having to put up all that money to be able to accomplish those things and be able to move at the speed that they do. As well as with taxes and quality assurance, making sure that those bills match to what you guys are billing the members. Make sure the right taxes are getting collected. Make sure that we're all staying compliant. That used to take a lot of time. When we first started working with the different billing systems, I can recall Tom Bigby, they were using SCDC at the beginning where they couldn't do broadband. So they were using gas and water to be able to bill a customer for internet or voice. But it was great. We were all working together. We made it happen, and it was humming. And then SCDC, like everyone else, started maturing, and they were able to put out a great broadband product, and we helped migrate to that and even make things better. So we were looking at those numbers as well, and we started looking at the times that it was taking, from our team to be able to provide that data, that information to, in my example, is Tom Bigby. And we cut that down by 90%. It's astonishing. I was looking at it, and I ran it a few times because I didn't think that the numbers were that big, like that was the impact, but it is. So it's pretty exciting to see from that aspect, from like Nick said, that you guys, a lot of the folks don't see what we do. You know, your direct folks like CFOs or your support folks or tier 2, tier 3s, they see it because their lives get easier, their jobs get easier, they can do more. But not everyone sees it, and it's good to share that, just let you know that that's what we're working for, is to continue to help you, and looking forward to next year to seeing better numbers because of what we're planning to do to continue to help you.
I watch these guys work from time to time, and to me, it's like going and sitting down in a restaurant, and you order that steak, and you got that potato and that salad, and you sit there and you enjoy that meal, and you kind of enjoy, the result of what somebody behind the scenes was doing, and I get to do that a lot with these guys. I get to see what they're doing, and get to be able to go and share that with you and talk about it, and and kind of hear how that's helping. In our breakout session yesterday, we were talking about the quote app and some of the things that these guys have done that's made some of your lives easier in trying to sell and promote your project. And we get to enjoy that, but what these guys do behind the scenes sometimes is just astounding. And like Dre said, they're constantly working to make things better for you. And the follow-up to that is they want to know that. They want to hear that feedback. They want to understand what are those things that you need. The other thing that Dre mentioned that I want to point out is there's a lot of great vendors here. There's a lot of great vendors in different fields. Just in the billing, you go CSA, GLDS, SADC here, Revo, whoever it is that you work with. We want to always stand on that ground that we're there to support you and support those that you work with, and do our best to work together. And I appreciate how hard these guys work with all of your other partners to make sure our stuff works with their stuff. Because at the end of the day, we want to save you that time and hassle and effort of making those things go. And when we looked at those numbers, that's it's hard to quantify sometimes things like that, but just kind of looking at that and thinking about the amount of time and some of the things that these guys have done in the last year that saved, your installers, folks in the field as they're trying to get stuff up and running. So a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago, we sent out an email and announced to you, released to you some different apps. A lot of you guys are already using these. You're probably pretty familiar with them, but we want to kind of go over them again today, just talk about them a little bit, and share with you some of the reasons behind why we did what we did, and maybe clarify some of those things that you might still have questions about. Dustin, we think about that slide's small for me. You think I would have made that bigger? So you think about some of the apps we have. I'm gonna have to look over here. The porting app. Is that what that is?
The tax app.
Tax app, sorry, thank you. I didn't stay up late enough last night. So Dustin, talk to us a little bit about the tax app and what it does.
Yes, so the tax app, we tried to make it versatile as well as easy to use. So we pull in all of the utilities products, and based off of the products, we will identify what the tax code is and the price that is normally used, and then we'll calculate it into, or perform calculations to be able to create a table that's hopefully easy to read as well as easy to export and utilize however is needed.
Dre, when you think about the need to have this app, what's the business case for that? What drives the need for us to have this available to the utility partners?
So, as I mentioned earlier, when we first started with the billing companies, the easiest way to go to market and without overcomplicating things was for us to send a CSV file when they are ready to bill, when a utility is ready to bill, letting them know what the taxes need to be collected for those members. As the different billing companies matured, they were able to do their own tax calculations. They didn't need to file anymore. They build it, and now they're able to do that for the utilities. But there was still a problem. The problem is what taxes to collect. What happens if the taxes change? The FUSIF changes every quarter. How do you know what it is? You know, is the CFO going to have, 2-3 days to go research and find out that the FUSIF is changing to whatever the new percentage is? Or like last July, the federal government instituted a new tax. How are they going to know? So we know because we're keeping them compliant. We're processing their taxes for them. But how do we easily can put that in the hands of the CFOs or anybody that it's doing billing? So we came together, and that's where the tax app came. An easy way where a CFO can go in, pick a product, put in a zip code, +4, because in some parts of rural America, as you guys know, different town, customer across the street from another customer can be in a different county in a different town, which makes things a little bit complicated. But if you have a zip code +4 and you pick a product, at that moment, real time, when you hit get tax, you get what those taxes are. And it's 100% accurate. And we felt that that was the best way to help those utilities that had those billing systems that can give them that flexibility and at the same time give them what they needed to know. As you guys will probably see in a trend here as we go through them, we try to make things easy. There's a lot of folks that build things that want to give you so much stuff so you can do it, but it just gets way too complicated. We're about making things easy for everyone, help solve issues where it literally takes you a minute to learn it. And you can move on and do your job, and life keeps on chugging.
Dustin, talk a little bit about the updates and changes with the Port app this year, and maybe some more of what it does.
So the Port app, we released that this year, and we took a lot of time going through the whole process of porting. It's a very complicated process, and we identified the best way to flow through form creation and being able to make it easy to use for end users. The app itself is 5 forms that you fill out with some customer information and add in your bills and a couple of PDFs, and then once it gets submitted, it goes into essentially a table. If you want to. Yeah, it goes into a table that you can easily sort and be able to see what your FOC is, to be able to see when the port is scheduled to be put in place. Then you can see your status changes. It updates on a per almost real-time basis. It's within 30 seconds the forms or these tables are reloading, and try to make it as easy to use as possible. And then once it's in this area, you can drill down into it and be able to. That's where we added in communication to be able to share information back and forth with the utilities, so that we can either gather more information if need be, or if we're having any issues with the port, that we can have that communication built in.
So one of the things about the Port Request app, and I know that this is probably more your CSRs, some of you deal with this, but most of you, the only time you probably saw this is when we first presented it to you. And so what when it came down to the porting app, really for the end user, the biggest thing that they saw a change in was the location that they went to, put in the port request. And the port request is when a customer is porting over their phone number, we need to gather some information from that customer, an LOA, a previous bill, et cetera, and we need the CSRs to submit that to us so that our team on the backside can go and, make that request. So one of the things that I appreciated what these guys did when they built the new porting app this year was they made it look as close as possible to the old porting app, so that it wasn't a big changeover for your folks. And when they saw it, really, it felt like home. It felt like the same thing. And it's also something that's always been very user intuitive. When I go and teach the porting app, I'm, almost stupid tedious about it and talk about all those things and try to get them to understand how important it is to get the right information so that we can save some hassle for the customer. But it's really something, once they learn, it takes them a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes to do. But one of the biggest things about this, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the things that happen on the backside, on the back end, were improved drastically and cut down on time and hassle with the end users. I don't know if you guys want to comment on that.
Definitely. So yes, there's a lot of things that happen on the back end that were manual steps, from submitting the ports to third parties to be able to essentially kick off that process, and all those manual processes pretty much got condensed down to a couple automated processes, and then being able to pull statuses from other third parties. So,
Just to give you guys an idea, when we first built the porting app, it was simple. It's just what the basic information that we needed, that the FCC required us to have, and that we needed to submit to the losing carriers as we're porting numbers away. That was the intent. It was make it simple, just get what we need from the utilities, from the CSRs, so we can do the hard part in regards to the porting process. But there was one big issue, is that it was two separate systems. So when a CSR submitted a port, we got the request, and then it went into a queue where a group of folks that worked had to go into another system, enter all that information in, and send it to the losing carrier, and have conversations back and forth, depending if there were rejections, and then have to go back to the porting app and update it and go back and forth. It was very inefficient. It was built just for that purpose, but as things progress, it became very inefficient. We wanted the CSR to submit a port, in that instant to go out to the losing carrier and request that port request for that date. And that cut down tremendously on the response times. The other thing that it accomplished was that for the utilities and the CSRs that have been doing it for a while and learned the business and learned what porting is about, they wanted more visibility. They wanted to be more self-sufficient. So we went ahead and shared what we're getting from the carriers. So that way, they're not waiting for us. The CSRs that are new, the utilities that are new, come to us, or anybody can come to our porting team, we'll take care of it. But for those utilities that are already veterans and they know how to do it, they can go in and look at what the rejection was. There was a name mismatch on the customer's account. There was an account number mismatch. The number is not on their bill. They're not waiting for us to tell them that. There's a notification that goes out to that CSR and lets them know. And they already know what they need to do. So when we launched the new porting app, we went around and got feedback It got released in different stages to figure out what everybody needed. What kind of notifications did they want? You know, at first we started sending a lot, and they were like, wait, hold on. We don't need to need all of that. Can you shrink it to this? The other problem that we had was that as the co-ops get bigger, the utilities get bigger, there's multiple people working on ports. And everybody's wearing multiple hats, doing multiple things. So we were getting the same questions, about the same orders. We needed to address that because it was consuming time on our side to make sure that we were keeping up with all the port orders that were coming in. And at the same time, it was hurting the utilities and those CSRs because they were going back to this customer multiple times telling them the same thing. So we needed a way to collaborate. That way it's all in one place, the conversations that are being had. So that way anybody at any utility can go look at a port request because the customer called them. Whether you're out in the field doing surveys for their drops and they have your cell phone number, whether you sold a business, hosted service, or whatever their interaction is with the member, you get a phone call and they want to find out, what's going on with my port? When am I getting my service? Why did it get pushed out twice? Because the losing carrier just rejected it for silly things. That person, if they choose to, they have the ability to go into the porting app, look at the logs, and be able to answer those questions to that customer without having to go look for 2-3 different folks, shoot off emails, and trying to figure out, what is going on. Because their demands, their requirements are more advanced. They can understand what the losing carrier is saying. And for the folks that don't, that are new, that are only been around a few weeks, we have a great porting team that we talk to everybody every day, probably 10, 12 times a day, and answer a lot of different questions. And the same question, maybe 10 times a day. But the whole purpose of it was to grow along with you guys, to not forget about the guys that are starting. They still need that simplicity from the porting app, that they just need to fill out those 10 fields, attach the bill, attach the LOA, and then they can go on to do what they need to do. But at the same time, growing with the utilities that have been doing it 2-3 years, they want to be more self-service, that want to be more engaging, and they want to make things better for their members. So that's where the porting app came from. That's why we rebuilt it completely, and we're not done. We'll be coming around later on this year and having conversations with the CSRs and say, okay, you used it for a while now. What do you like? What don't you like? What's missing? We're never done. When people come to us and we release apps, we start taking notes and keeping track of what everybody says, because we are going to come back. We know we're all growing, things are changing, and we're going to come back after people had a chance to use it, and we're going to continue to make it better. So that's where the new porting app came from.
Comes back to, at the end of the day, as Ray mentioned, that end user experience. We want to make that process as simple as possible. As most of you guys know, one of the biggest challenges that all of us have in working on the voice side of things is dealing with those losing carriers. As Keith alluded to yesterday in the panel discussion, they can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes, and maybe that's saying it lightly. And so what I appreciate about what these guys have done is trying to find new ways to remove user error on our side, reduce time, so that whatever things that we have to deal with with the losing carrier is minimized, so that your customers, your members, the person that we ultimately want to have the best experience has that great experience when they are trying to deal with that. Another app that we worked on was the voice provisioning app. If you guys, Dustin, want to talk about that a little bit, what it does and how we updated that this year.
Yes, so the voice provisioning app is, we started encountering occasionally issues with API calls to our voice provisioning APIs. And we wanted to be able to expand on that and be able to not necessarily have to do things manually for going through and entering or provisioning for voice. So we built upon our APIs to be able to create a really easy to use form that you just input the customer data, you notate if their address and their business type or business or residential, and then be able to specify if they're porting or a new number or not, and then kick it off, and it's able to go out and provision within the next couple of minutes and have new numbers ready to go quickly for both Logicom team and the utilities to if they're in techs and if they're out working and the APIs seem to be not responding, they can come in here and easily set up voice accounts, provision voice accounts.
Dre, how do you think this is impacting the co-ops? What difference is it making with the changes here?
So when we created the voice provisioning app, we were trying to address a few issues. As we mentioned, we collaborate constantly with all the billing companies and provisioning servers, and we're all collectively always figuring out what can we do more? You know, how can we stay real time with, you know, when you guys do disconnects and reconnects and suspends? You know, how do we handle people changing addresses? So we're all constantly building and developing and making things better and more efficient for your CSRs or for everyone involved. Well, that comes at a cost. The cost is that you try to code and think of every scenario or possibility that you can encounter, but with all those changes, sometimes things break. Sometimes the billing company didn't think of a particular field or a particular place that an API call, a message needed to be sent to, and things break. On our side, you know, a billing company will come to us and say, hey, we want our utilities, our customers to be able to do this. So we collaborate, we try to make it as simple as possible on both sides so we can achieve those things for you as quickly as possible to not overcomplicate things. But sometimes we're not perfect. Sometimes we make a mistake as well, and we go back and fix it. But it leaves the folks that are supporting you, both on the utility side and on our side, with a gap. They're blind. They don't know what's going on. They know they were in the billing system. They provisioned this customer services that this customer is getting, this member is getting, but the ONT is not provisioned. In AOE, they're not seeing the information. The ONT is not registering. Well, it's not easy to get a hang of development and have them look at logs and tell you that in reality the reason why it didn't go through is because you enter an address that's incorrect, that doesn't exist because you misspelled it. Or in reality, you put a phone, instead of a phone number for the customer that you're porting, you put their contact phone number as their cell phone number. And therefore, we don't have that number, so we can't build it, we can't provision it. But they have no visibility to that, which we're changing. But what can we do? Well, there's an installer on site that's already been there for an hour. And he has to keep going to be able to meet the amount of installs that he has for that day. Our guys that are in engineering, provisioning, and porting, we're all helping different folks. So an email gets sent out, and as they come in and people free up, they look at it, they see what the issue is. We try to build it, address it, look at it, and fix it. The installer is still there. Now he's there 2 hours because between the back and forth, getting the information that's needed, because the first message that comes across, the assumption is not one of that somebody missent or something. The assumption is that something is broken because everything is changing. So that's the assumption. So after some dialogue back and forth, they're like, hey, the address is wrong. And then the next question is, well, can you build it for me? Okay, this is what I need. Well, lo and behold, we're like 2-3 hours in, and frustration is at its highest all across, right? The installer is anxious because he's there way too long past the time that he was supposed to be there. The person at the utility that we're having the conversations, just wants to get this installer going. They have 50 billion things going on at the same time, and it's just completely changing their day. So for the folks that have been around for a while, and it goes back to the same concept as the porting app, we needed to give them the ability to self-service. They already know what they need to provision a voice customer. And that's where we created the voice provisioning app. Again, simple. Instead of sending us an email, waiting for a reply, verifying it, they can come in here and in less than 5 minutes, they can provision that ONT, get the installer offsite, and keep going. There's a couple other issues that were coming up. Another one is the ability to port. We build some stuff on the back end of our switch to make the technicians be able to self-service when they're on site. Meaning they're on site, they're trying to run 100 miles an hour so they can get to the next job. We don't want them to have the need to call into us, give us the account information, the address, we verify they're at the right place, that all the info is correct, just to make sure that we're doing the right things. We wanted the easy button for the installers as well. So we created some star feature codes, like they can press star 80 from a residential line or a business line, and if we have a FOC, which is a firm order commitment date from the losing carrier for that day, they get a message played back saying, your port is going through, please give it a few minutes. They don't have to call anybody, they don't have to do anything, and they wait a couple of minutes to make a test call, and they're done. Simple as that may sound, for some installers, I don't know, it's just hard. So, the guys that are supporting, your tier 2 guys, the utilities that are supporting this, folks, again, they need that easy button. They don't want to have to send us an email or call us and go through the gamut. They just want to be able to port that number, move on, get the installer offsite, and keep doing installs. So we added the ability for them to port. They can go in there, click on port, enter the phone number, hit port, they're done. And the last thing is voicemail. Not a lot of customers, as much as I love our voicemail system and the fact that they can get their voicemails via email, they can store them for whatever they may need. Some customers just want to have their voicemail, their answering machine at home, that when they get home, they can see the number, hit the play button, that's all they want. They don't need anything else. Same thing, when installers were coming in and they were calling up to port numbers, one of the questions that we were asking is, can you ask the member if they want their voicemail? Again, this took time, and our mission is to cut down on labor and time and cost and be able to keep people doing their job as easy as possible and not add time. So we added the ability for them to remove voicemail. Again, it was a star feature code. It's actually star 81, where any installer can connect to an ONT, dial that feature code, and the voicemail is gone. You don't have to wait a couple of minutes for us to remove it or self-service. Again, for some folks, I don't know, it seems to be difficult. Or the customer changes their mind, but for some reason they got the tier 2 cell phone number, or they get in touch with your support folks and said, hey, can you get rid of this voicemail? I don't want it. again, we wanted to give them the ability to self-service. That person on the utility side to be able to quickly go in there, put in a phone number, hit remove voicemail, it's gone. There's no 2, 3 emails, a time gap. The customer's on their phone, they want voicemail gone, give me a couple of minutes, enter the phone number, hit remove voicemail, it's gone. Everybody's happy, a couple of minutes done, and there's not all this extra time wasted going back and forth and the member waiting, and you know, you have them on the phone, you're taking care of it, it's done, and it's easy.
Dre and Dustin's concept of simple and my concept of simple are two very different things. I understand about a third of what they just talked about, but what I love about them and what I hope that you're hearing as they're talking is that they're constantly thinking about you, they're constantly thinking about your customer, your installers, your end users, and what ways can we make this go faster? What ways can we remove user error? What ways can we save time and effort so that, again, we're all providing a better experience and a better product? And they go on, and sometimes my eyes glaze over because I don't understand it all. But I love that they're always thinking that way. I really appreciate the drive and passion that they have for those things. One of the things also is quickly just mention a couple of things about the international rate app is also something that you guys threw in just really because of getting a lot of questions from time to time from the utilities. Just real quickly, how does that help these guys?
So yeah, we added basically a sortable table that lists all the international rates, and whenever they get updated on I'm pretty sure quarterly basis.
Yes.
Quarterly basis, we make sure those are up to date so that they can be pulled down. You can search, pull them down, and download like a CSV of it to be able to utilize.
A lot more searchable than
Yeah.
the old spreadsheet that we used to have that you had to go looking up, specific countries and things like that. So just another example of what we're doing there. The next one I want to get to, and I kind of skipped over that one a little bit because our time is running short, but there's two more things that we want to talk to you about. One was one that I had wanted for a long time, was the quote app. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday in the other breakout session where we talked about managed services and hosted voice and things like that, that we wanted to constantly put tools in your hands and the hands of your salespeople so that they could quickly make sales. And one of the ways we did that, as we talked about yesterday, was creating new pricing bundles to make that simpler. Anytime you're talking about sales, it's a numbers game, right? The more people that you can get in front of, the more people that you can talk to, the more likely you're to have return on that investment. That's how I found a wife all those years ago. I just realized if I ask enough people, somebody would slip up and say yes. And so, thankfully she's still with me today. But, that's what sales is. It's numbers. Talk to a lot of people. Talk to as many people as you possibly can. And what we saw is it was time consuming for the folks that were trying to sell. And so we wanted to give you tools. And this tool, I want to say, and then let them talk about it a little bit, not only does it work for voice, but it's also built out to be able to allow you to just make data quotes, to be able to use a single place, a single location, to quickly get a quote into the hands of a business customer. Talk a little bit about this, guys, and kind of what you built into it.
So basically, like you said, we identified the quickest way to gather all the information, all the product information for the utility, the being able to have it be customizable and generate a PDF of all the output and get it into the business or customer's hands very quickly. And doing that, but yeah, you can take it can be really quick or a lengthy process, even just working with an end user or a customer. So we allowed to be able to, it can be quick, or you can go back within the quoting system and update information as you're working with your customer. So
the quote, we found that, when we're looking to work with the utilities, it's not only about saving time, making things faster, saving you money, but we're also thinking about your bottom line. Try to help you get to the black as soon as possible and get more revenue out of every customer that you can. And at the same time, giving them good service in something that they need. They're so used to what they had and what they had to put up with that they don't realize what they can get and what they can have and how much better things can be for them than just having to deal with what they had and accept that. Just to give you an idea, you can go into a business and sell them internet for $100. But if that business has 10 phones, you can turn that customer from a $100 customer to $500 customer. That same customer. So Nick, Dustin, and I got together and we said, we got to do something. We got to help these folks. We got to make it easy because, again, they're new to the business. How can we make it easier for them to be able to go see a customer, explain it really easy, which this was a combination of the bundles that came out and the quote app, because it wasn't just about building something. We needed to make it easier as well. We needed to combine the two. So we needed to fix the issue of, instead of taking a couple of days going back and forth and trying to figure out how to price this customer, and then by that time you already lost the customer's interest and it's that much harder to get the deal, how can we get a quote to a customer within 15 minutes or less while you're sitting there in front of the customer, or for those that are more comfortable, once they get outside to their car, before they move on and forget about it, that they can, from their phone, be able to send this to the customer. But at the same time, when the customer calls them three different times later to make changes because now they need more phones or less phones, or they want different internet packages or whatever changes they need, that they can easily go 2-3 clicks, send from wherever they are, and they're done. It's not this whole rework of doing things. And that's where, the quoting app alongside with the bundles came through, and it's been a huge success all around. We're seeing it through all the utilities. Some people has taken them a little bit more time to get going because they were used to the old process and a little bit more complex, which it was better for the member, but in reality, it just made it too complicated for folks that haven't been in the industry like us for 20, 30 years that you can educate the customer.
So one of the things, Nick Tucker's in here, Bonnie's in here, that kind of seen some of the old way that you used to get a big spreadsheet. And Sean's sitting back there and he likes spreadsheets, but I think this one made his head hurt. And we used to send this out and they would have to kind of go through, and like Dre said, there was original reason for why that was done the way it was done. But as we learned and grew and kind of started to see trends with how customers were responding to cooperatives and responding to what you were doing, we saw that there were other ways that we could kind of think outside the box and look at that differently, creating some of those new pricing bundles and creating this, and it led to that efficiency. Where before you might have to go out and talk to a customer, ask a bazillion questions, go back and try to work through all that, figure out what they need, reach out to Bailey or somebody like that, and ask questions, to where now, most of the time you can put a quote out in 10 minutes, 15 minutes, while you're talking to that customer. And so just, things like this are always a huge help in that. And so, any of these things that we've talked about this morning, if you have questions, talk to these guys about it. Ask them why we did what we did. If you have feedback, they want to hear it because they want to make it better. They want to continue to improve it. They want to save time, save money, and create a better experience as we move forward. So as we kind of wind down, what are we working on today? What's coming up? What are we in the process of building out?
So currently, we're in the process of working on the Orders app, Orders application, which is basically a way for us to increase velocity, make things faster when we're performing or handling orders like hardware orders, and trying to make it self-service as well. Then,
So that will cut down on the time as far as
yeah, and
when they order equipment for hardware, like on the hosted solutions, things like that, keeping their stock so that that time is not as big. Go ahead, Ray.
Our whole second half of this year, our focus is going to be on visibility. Like we've done with the porting app and with all the other tools, if we want to give the folks that are out there in the utilities working visibility. And make things self-service for those that choose to. Those that don't can continue to do the way they are if they feel comfortable. What the Order app is going to allow them to do is going to allow them to order hardware and see real-time stock of what's available, what the charges are involved, what the shipping costs are based on their needs, without having to send an email, talk to Bailey, talk to anyone, and say, hey, is this in stock? You know, how much is this? You know, when can you get it here? They're going to be able to go in there, pick whatever product, whatever hardware they need, and they're going to have the options. They don't have to worry about, they can, you know, get in touch with us, and because they need it tomorrow, and there's a 30-minute before our staging and shipping department closes, they can literally go in there and do that. The other thing is, for hosted or managed service installs, you know, they need visibility. They're seeing all these customers, they run into them at the store, they run into them at church, and they want to know where their project is. You know, they sold the deal, we're working through it, we're collaborating with the customer, we're communicating, and we're taking care of that. That salesperson, once they sell it, that should be it. That should be the last worry. We take it on, and we carry it to the end. But there's times that they need visibility, and we want to give that to them, where they can go into an order, they can see where it is in the process, when they're getting installed, when they're getting ported, when we're going to do a site survey, when we're going to talk to them, so that way they get a question from the customer and they want to go look and give them a real-time answer, it's there. So that's what we're working on currently now.
All right. Something that we're want to share with you also as we kind of close out here, something that we're considering, something that we're looking at, something that we're going to be talking about to you guys coming up very soon is a new mobile app for voice. In the past, we've had an option with our hosted customers to use an over-the-top app like Bria or something like that to be an extension on a business phone. But the challenge with a lot of that is that you guys live in rural areas, right? That's why you're trying to do what you're trying to do. And as you know, cell phone service is not always great in those areas. And so sometimes an app like that can be frustrating because it just doesn't work. And so we've been looking at other options. I'm going to ask Dre just a second to talk about what that looks like. But we're mentioning this to you now because we're going to need to talk to you about this. It's going to be quite a costly thing to do. And so we're going to want some buy-in from you before we go down this road. But tell us a little bit, Dre, about what does that look like? What is that going to be? And how will that be helpful as far as voice customers?
So as Nick mentioned, and I experienced it firsthand trying to use those over-the-top apps because we were trying to figure out one that we'd like, that we can put the Logicom name behind and say, use this. We feel comfortable. This is a good product. You can use it. As I travel through the South to visit a lot of you guys, if I don't have data signal, it just doesn't work. So it's pointless. We can't put our name behind something that's not going to work or that's not going to work all the time. So what can we do? We're going to use the native dialer, meaning if you have one bar on your cell phone and you're able to receive a voice call, it will work. It's going to use your native dialer on your cell phone. So if somebody calls you on the mobile app, the call is going to come across the voice cellular network, but it's going to pop up your mobile app so you can tell there's a different call than your cell phone, because your mobile app will come up on your display and you'll be able to answer it, just like if you were in the office. And as well as making an outbound call, the way that it will work, you will open the app, dial a number like you normally would, but in the background, your phone is actually going to dial a different number. And that number is a number that it's on our back end that is going to take that call. It's going to look at the number that you were really trying to call and then complete the call out. So the person on the other end receiving that call sees the call like if you were in the office. And that way we're not worried about you having 3 bars or full signal. As long as you have 1 bar, you can answer a call on your cell phone, the mobile app would work. Along with it, I think that was tremendous to be able to business owners or residential customers that want to use it to have that ability. But we wanted to add more to it, especially geared more towards the business customer, as well as the residential, but more geared to the business customer. What would the business customer need to have at their hand? We created the ability for them to get faxes. As much as I wish that we'd all be gone and we didn't have to deal with faxes, that's just not reality. People still use them. So for business customers that have a virtual fax with us, they'll be able to get their faxes on their phone. They'll be able to get their voicemails on their phone. They'll be able to tell how many voicemails they'll have. They'll be able to listen to them. They want to look at their call history of who called their desk. They can look at the call history and see, who called their desk. So if they need to go look at the number of the person that called them and they're not in the office anymore, they'll be able to see it on their mobile app. But the coolest thing that we have, and I don't think a lot of people are aware of it, it's a move feature on our switch. And the way that it works is that if you have multiple devices assigned to yourself, you can move a call from one device to the other. What that means is that if you're on your desk phone, but you need to leave to a meeting to do something, and you just can't finish that conversation with that person, you don't have to tell them, I'll call you back. You don't have to cut the call short. You can pull up your mobile phone, open the mobile app, dial 6683, which spells move. That call seamlessly moves from your phone to your mobile phone. This person never noticed that it changed. And now the call is on your phone, and you're leaving. You're going to do what you need to do. The same thing, the opposite direction. You're out to lunch, somebody calls you, you answer, you're talking to them, but now you need to walk back into your office because you need to be in front of your computer and talk to them. But once you sit at your desk, you no longer want to be talking on your cell phone and holding it. You pick up your desk phone, you dial 6683, the call is on your desk now. And the person on the other end couldn't tell. And I think for residential customers, not only for business, but I think for residential customers, that is huge. They're at home, they're waiting for a phone call from somebody delivering something, or they can answer their phone anywhere. They don't have to try to call the delivery folks to say, hey, can you call me here? Can you call me 30 minutes before? Can you call my mobile? No. You have the mobile app. It's going to ring your phone, your cell phone, wherever you are. I think that's going to be huge, for residential customers to have that ability. Since 2004, the amount of landlines across the country has gone down every year. And we have to figure out a different way to make customers more stickier, bring more value, where they want to say, I want that. How great is that I can leave my home, I don't have to give out my cell phone number to people, and now people have my cell phone number. I can just give out my home number, the telemarketers can call me as much as they want, but nobody has my cell phone number. My cell phone number is just for those people that I want to give it to. And I think if we can drive that value into a residential customer and show them what they can do, I think that's a game changer.
As a dad, that was something that was pretty cool sounding to me, that I could, have this secondary app on my phone and, give it out to ball coaches, school teachers, et cetera. And they're calling our, quote unquote family phone, and that's going to either my wife or my cell phone, and be able to dial out from that. And then you think about the possibilities from a business standpoint, especially thinking about the last year and how much things went mobile. And I watch my wife struggle. She works at a local bank in their loan service center. I watched them struggle with how to take phone calls, how to answer the phone, how to make phone calls, and just thinking about the possibilities of what that could look like and what this app could do, and actually truly creating a virtual PBX, virtual office to where, using this app doesn't even require an extension to have a desk phone. There's a lot of people who say, I don't even want a desk phone, just make it to where it'll work with my cell phone. This is going to be a feature that, you can sell to your customers, and I think the possibilities of what we can do with it are endless. So we want you to be thinking about that, thinking about, your interest level in that. Is that something that you can, sell to your customers, to your businesses, and it will make things easier for you to get businesses on board with the types of services that you're offering. So I appreciate these guys. Talk to them, ask questions about the apps that we put out that you have, maybe anything that you don't understand, and give them feedback about these things. What do you need it to do better? What else do you need to be easier about what we do? And they're going to continue to work on those things. I appreciate these guys being with us this morning and talking about those things. So real quickly, I just want to give you a couple things about the day. Lunch is on your own because we have a dinner tonight, which will be out on the deck by the pool, close to the water. There are 3 different events going on, I believe, so I'm not exactly sure which part of the deck there will be, but one of our ladies, Michelle, and some of her crew will be out there giving out drink tickets, so look for them when you come down tonight. Also have some great things going on this afternoon, some great sessions. Another panel, Marcus Desco is going to be here with us and talking about some different things, so excited to hear what he has to say. Also, Doug from AdTran is going to be talking about some different stuff, so looking forward to all of those sessions this afternoon. Right now, what we're going to do is dismiss into 2 different breakout sessions. The billing, taxes, 499, our policy strategy moving forward, dealing with that and dealing with stir shaking, that will be in here. And also in the other room, the room 2, our network team will be talking about our network services, some of the things that they're offering, and some of the challenges that they see when it comes to dealing with your network, getting it built as well as maintaining it and growing it as your customer base grows. So looking forward to both of those sessions. So we're going to take about 5 minutes to stretch your legs, run to use the restroom, and then both of those sessions will get started in their individual rooms. Let us know if you have questions. Appreciate you being here, and I will dismiss for just a couple of minutes.